She left you. Maybe she left you recently. Maybe she left you a while ago and you're still trying to figure out exactly what was going on because things were going well, at least on your end. But ultimately, you were left. This is something I talk to clients about often in our coaching calls because a lot of guys are just blindsided when their woman leaves them, either in a marriage, either in a relationship, or even in a situationship, as they call it these days. And the thing that kind of troubles these guys is, why did she leave? Like, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong so that I can make sure I don't do that wrong thing in the future? That's exactly what we're going to get into in this video. I'm going to give you the 4 main reasons why women leave men, specifically good men, in relationships, and what you can do about it in order to avoid that fate for yourself. So the number 1 reason why a lot of guys are left is because they never vetted the woman in the first place. This is an important skill that both men and women have to cultivate nowadays. It's not really taught, right? A lot of people, when they get into relationships, a lot of guys, when they choose a woman to get with, they normally are just choosing her based off of chemistry. She's physically attractive. Maybe he enjoys spending time with her. He enjoys the validation that he can extract and how being with her can kind of pump up his ego. He enjoys having sex with her, right? He enjoys being seen with her. But that's not a big enough reason for you to commit to a person. To vet is simply to make sure a person's behavior matches your standards over time, right? Very specifically, you're observing behavior over time to ensure that it matches your standards, which means you have to engage the person for quite a bit of time before you can actually make an assessment on whether or not you want to be with them and commit to them. And a lot of guys, when they come to me, either because they recently got divorced or they recently gotten broken up with, when I start to learn more about the woman they chose, it was as clear as day that this woman was not the right person for them. You'll get guys who try to get an Instagram model, man, shaking ass on social media, cheeks everywhere, left cheek, right? Just moving. And they commit to her, and then they are surprised that a woman like that does foul things, tries to get the attention of other men, flirting on social media. They're trying to change the woman into something else. So you have to factor in compatibility when you are entertaining these women, when you are deciding what woman you are going to choose. You have to specifically vet for character. This is something I teach a lot of people when they come on my live show and they ask me questions. Whenever I am actively dating a woman, when I see her engage in certain behaviors, I like to map that to a character trait, because when you understand their character, you understand how things are going to play out. Character is destiny. A liar is going to lie. A cheater is going to cheat. Someone who doesn't take accountability is not going to take accountability. So once you can assess the woman's character, you know exactly who you're dealing with, and you know exactly how these things or your situation is going to play out. So ultimately, you're looking for a woman who moves in good faith. You don't want a woman who moves in bad faith. You want a woman who is moving in a way that suggests that she believes y'all are on the same team. She has your best interest in mind. It doesn't mean that she's sacrificing her end of the situation. It doesn't mean that she's sacrificing herself for you, but it does mean y'all are on the same team. When you have problems, it is you and her against the problem, not you against her. Okay? So you want to make sure that you take the time and observe her over time, observe reality, not to go off into fantasy land and dream about the life you're all going to have together and ignore all red flags. You want to really make sure you have an accurate read on the person you're dealing with, because if you do not, if you don't get this part right, nothing else on this list is going to help you, because the biggest mistake was made at the very beginning. Now, the second reason why a lot of women leave men, especially good men, is because they turned into a safety guy. Here's what I mean by safety guy. So I have this framework called the 2 sides of attraction. The 2 sides of attraction are spark and safety. Spark is anything that stimulates desire. It's behavioral traits or actions that you engage in that makes a woman like desire you and crave you. So some traits that give off spark are going to be looking good, dressing well, having a good sense of humor, having boundaries, being socially savvy, being popular, being able to escalate, being smooth. All of these things give off spark. Safety is anything that gives a woman or makes a woman feel safe and connected with you. Okay, so some traits that give off safety are going to be emotional intelligence, emotional attunement, protecting, providing, being a good leader, genuinely being interested in her world, Those are traits that are going to give off safety. The problem is most guys are top heavy in one of these and deficient in the other. Very rarely will you see a guy who offers both of these traits, who check both of these boxes, okay? Now, a lot of guys, though, have enough spark to get into a relationship. But when they get into the relationship, over time, they start to turn into that safety guy. You have to understand, women, people in general do this, but women tend to optimize for comfort, AKA safety. When you hear women describe the kind of guy they want, typically they list out a lot of safety traits. So what they consciously think they want is a guy who gives a lot of safety. But the problem is, in an attempt to bring that out of their man, they are reducing the traits that give off spark. You hear a lot of guys say that a woman will get you into a relationship and then she'll start to turn you into the guy who she thinks she wants, and then she'll leave you for that. That's not entirely true, but it is directionally accurate, because that's kind of what's going on in the dynamic. There's just no malicious intent usually on the side of the woman. What's actually happening is she is trying to create safety for herself in the environment, but she doesn't understand the cost. The cost of that is going to be reducing spark. But it's not all on her, because if the man was truly showing up in the way that he was supposed to show up, her attempts in doing so would be ineffective. The problem that a lot of guys have, the reason why they become safety guys in relationships, is because they are unaware of what is animating them. What I mean by animation is what goal you have, consciously or unconsciously. What belief or goal do you have in this situation that is birthing your actions, that is influencing your behavior? A lot of guys in their relationship, their goal is to make their woman happy. Their first goal during the courtship phase is simply to know how to get her. It's like, okay, who do I have to be to get this woman? Then once they get her, their goal shifts to keeping her. Now it's like, who do I need to be in order to keep her? And what they think is necessary to keep the woman is to keep her happy. And if what she is saying will make her happy is you giving off more safety traits, and you start to do that because it aligns with your goal, you are over time going to become that safety guy. What does this look like practically? It looks like she doesn't want you to go to the gym so much because she wants to spend time together. She doesn't want you to hang out with your friends because she doesn't like your friends. She doesn't want you to work so much. She doesn't want you to pursue your goals. She doesn't want you to pursue your purpose because she feels like she's not the priority in your life. All of these are an attempt to have you give her more safety. And when you are being animated by a desire to make her happy, you are going to fall into this trap. The issue with guys who are in this situation is they have a incorrect belief, and that is that they can make their woman happy. Her happiness is her responsibility. That does not mean that you don't create the conditions for her to experience happiness. That doesn't mean that you don't do your part in the connection, but ultimately, that is her job. Your job is to maintain spark and safety. The way that you do that is you have to exist within the tension of being connected to your woman, being able to give her what you feel like she needs, and also remaining connected to yourself. Easier said than done. It's very challenging, but that needs to be what animates you in your relationship. You need to be animated by this belief that you're going to be interdependent. You are going to remain grounded in your sense of self and not lose yourself in the relationship, because in doing so, you effectively become that safety guy. So that means that whatever you were doing, assuming you weren't out here like acting buck wild, right? Going to the strip club, slapping cheeks, you want to maintain whatever you were doing while you were attracting your woman, because there's a reason why she chose you. And if you lose those traits while being in the relationship, you're going to lose the desire that she has for you. So you have to remain connected to yourself. So if you were going to the gym, continue to go to the gym. If you have certain hobbies, keep those hobbies. If you have certain friends, assuming they aren't a detriment to the relationship itself, keep those friends. If you have a purpose that you're pursuing, continue to pursue that purpose. You have to remain an individual while also maintaining the connection in the relationship. You see, a lot of guys can't handle the tension that comes from the woman wanting you to do something and then you setting boundaries around that. They can't handle that tension. The guys who I coach, a lot of them will avoid conflict. They'll avoid any situation where they feel like the woman is going to be upset with them. But her being upset with you is part of what keeps the spark intact. Spark is mostly predicated upon tension. Tension in this context is going to be differences. Like they say, opposites attract. When you start to merge yourself into the woman, merge yourself into the relationship, you start to eliminate the differences that you have. And when you eliminate those differences, you eliminate tension. And when you eliminate tension, you eliminate passion. And when there is no passion and there's only safety, she's going to be bored and her attention is going to go elsewhere. So this is an incredibly important thing for you guys to realize. A lot of pushback that I get from guys is like, I don't want to do all this for a woman. I just fuck them, right? I'm like, listen, the advice that I give y'all is advice that's going to make your life better. Just you as an individual. And then the byproduct is that any kind of connections you have with women also improve. So when you live in this way, you should be a more happy individual. When you stay connected to yourself, you're going to achieve more goals. You're going to make more friends. You're going to have a more full life. And in doing so, your woman is going to be more attracted to you. Some of that spark is going to be maintained. Now, you also still want to give safety. The issue is, like I said, guys polarize to one end or the other. You know, just offering spark also creates problems. That's something that I haven't mentioned in this video, but if you're a guy who just has spark, a woman will leave you for different reasons because she never feels safety in the connection and she needs to leave. She never feels like you are emotionally connected to her. So in that situation, she'll leave you for an entirely different reason. But you want to exist within this tension where you're able to get both of that. Easier said than done, but it is extremely possible. All you need to do is maintain your sense of self while also remaining connected to her. You give her her needs to a point where you aren't sacrificing yourself. So if there's something she's asking of you, if it's not you abandoning your values, give it to her. But if it is something that is abandoning your values or abandoning doing something that's important to you, say no. Find a win-win scenario, but say no if there is no win-win scenario. If she gets upset, she gets upset. She will get over it. You need to have a voice. You need to have balls in your relationship. When guys talk about frame, this is all keeping frame is. People mention frame all the time on YouTube and on social media. No one really clearly defines it. There are multiple definitions, but the most practical definition in this scenario is you maintain your values. You're clear on what you value, what's important to you in life, and you don't sacrifice that for anyone. You stand firmly on those. If someone is requesting something of you that will betray your values and thus make it so you abandon yourself, you simply don't do it and you're serious about it. Paradoxically, not trying to make your woman happy is what keeps her happy in the long run, even if there are short-term ruptures in the process. Number 3 kind of connects with being the safety guy because a lot of safety guys do this. But number 3 is that you are unwilling to leave the connection. A lot of guys have one-itis. A lot of guys never learn how to attract women and they luck up and they get one and they become super needy. They don't want to leave the connection. Or maybe they're conditioned by society. Maybe they're married or in a relationship and they feel like the man is supposed to just tolerate any kind of treatment. He's supposed to suffer through the relationship, right? Bear his cross and suffer in this situation. Now, I'm not saying that there won't be some degree of suffering in your relationship. I mean, you be with someone long enough, obviously there's going to be some pain involved, but you have to have a willingness to leave your relationship. This is a big one, guys. This is what fucks a lot of guys up. They are unwilling to leave. And they think that this commitment is honorable. They think that being able to put up with any kind of treatment makes them a good guy. But the thing is, it will make you a good guy who will soon be left. Because here's the thing, guys. Women do not like neediness. There's 2 things you cannot do. Be boring and be needy. If you do one of those things, and worse, if you do both, she's out of there. If she doesn't physically leave, she will emotionally leave. She will psychologically leave. You will feel abandoned within your own relationship, even though there is another warm body sitting beside you. You have to have a willingness to leave. And one of the major things, like I said, that prevents guys from leaving is, other than this commitment that they made, they also don't think they will be able to replace their woman with anyone, which is why I said the previous point. You have to remain connected to yourself and doing the things you were doing that got your woman in the first place. You need to always stay in a state of readiness. You need to stay in a state where If she was to leave me, I can go out there the next day and get someone else. It doesn't mean that's what you need to do. That needs to be the state that you stay in. If you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. A lot of guys stop going to the gym. They get pudgy. They stop putting forth any effort. They start pouring into themselves. They become less attractive over time and then are magically surprised as to why their woman wants to leave them. You have to stay in the state of readiness and you have to be willing to leave. This does not mean that you are not committed to your woman, that you are not committed to the relationship. It just means that you are committed to a point. If you are not showing up in a way that matches my standards and I see there's no effort coming from you, and we've talked about this, she needs to know that you will leave. Because if you don't leave, if you allow disrespect, she's going to disrespect you more because she's going to begin to resent you for not having boundaries. Respect for women is linked to desire, meaning as her respect drops for you, as does her desire. So if you're allowing yourself to be disrespected, desire is dropping at an alarming rate. It will eventually cross a threshold to where there is no coming back from. So you have to be willing to leave your relationship. And this does not need to be something that is verbally communicated. It is a internal orientation. It's just your default disposition. Women can kind of read your vibe. They can read your energy. They'll be able to tell the difference if you're someone who's willing to leave them or not. So as long as your inner belief is that you will leave the relationship if you're not treated properly, that will ensure or increase the likelihood that she continues to pour into the relationship. And if she doesn't do so, you gotta go. You gotta go. A lot of guys, when I talk to them about their relationship that's on shaky ground, one of the biggest things they have to do is have a hard conversation like, yo, I will leave. And that oftentimes will improve things. It's not a guarantee. And normally when it's not a guarantee, it's because they violated the first rule, which was vetting, right? They never read the woman that they were with. But you need to be willing to leave. If you are unwilling to leave, your woman knows that you have pedestalized her. She knows that you are needy, and that absolutely will ruin her attraction for you. Number 4 is an important one as well. And the number 4 reason a lot of good guys are left is because they became too known. And what do I mean by that? What do I mean by you became too known? At a certain part in your relationship, you were still getting to know one another. It was very passionate at the early phase of the connection. You couldn't keep your hands off one another. That's because there was a lot of you to explore. But a lot of guys, because they violated other rules on this list, they stopped growing. They stopped expanding. They started staying in this static state. They became boring, because once you are super familiar with something, you increase the likelihood you will become bored with it. She knows too much about you. She's peered into your inner world. You've shared too much. Because you don't have friends, or you don't really hang out with your friends, because you've abandoned the life that you were living prior to meeting her, she's now your one and only. So now the only person you have to kind of just share your things with is your woman, and now she knows simply too much about you. Now, this doesn't mean you have to engage in some sort of toxic manipulation of hiding yourself. No, what I mean by this is you have to understand the mechanism at play. Tension in this context is the gap between the known and unknown. That's why if you go on the first date and you kind of just like, let's say you've been on the date for like an hour or so and you just kind of make eye contact with the woman and you just look at her with like a smirk on your face and you just sit in that tension for a bit. It's like a turn on for them. It kind of spikes their anxiety a little bit in a good way, and it makes them more attracted. It offers more spark because she doesn't know why you're looking at her, right? She doesn't know why you're staring her down. It is the gap between the known and unknown. As you progress in a relationship, you start becoming more known. And when you become more known, you decrease the tension. As tension decreases, spark, AKA desire, decreases. And then you end up in a situation where you have a dead bedroom. You see how everything in this list is kind of connecting together? How like number 1 blends to number 2 blends to number 3. Everything of this is connected, right? So you have to do what you can to maintain tension. Now, what does that look like? You know, a game person in the manosphere or the red pill may tell you never to communicate with your woman, not to tell her anything. Like I say, that's the wrong strategy. What you want to do instead is keep growing as a person. You keep that vibrant life you had before you met her, and you continue pursuing your purpose. You continue expanding yourself. In other words, you put yourself in a situation to where there is always more of you to explore. there's always more of you to explore, you will never become known. And what I mean by known is you are now positioned to where there's nothing new to learn about you. You haven't grown. You go to work, you come home. You go to work, you come home. You go to work, you come home. She kind of figured you out at this point. Now there's nothing more exciting in the connection. But if you're out building a business or leveling up your career in corporate America or picking up new hobbies, new interests, reading new books, meeting new people, moving to another location, these are things that kind of expand who you are. They expand your identity. Women want to feel movement in the connection. They want things to feel alive. They want to feel emotionally alive. So the adventure or the excitement that comes along with seeing that there is more to you to uncover keeps them engaged in the experience. This is why being boring is probably one of the worst things you can do, because there's no emotional activity. There's no vitality. Women are vetting men for vitality. They want a man with a lot of life force. And a man with a lot of life force is going to grow. Everything in life that has life force grows. And understand, in life, you are either growing or contracting. One of those two things is happening at all times. So if you're actively not injecting energy into yourself and into your life, you are by default contracting. You are becoming smaller. You are dying. You are regressing. And if you're doing that, the relationship is doing that. And if the relationship is doing that, she has to leave. Okay? Now, if you apply the things on this list, I know you probably got left recently if you clicked on this video, but if you apply the things on this list, it greatly increases the odds that the woman who you are with is going to be more engaged in the connection. But this is not an exhaustive list. It can be hard to apply the things that I'm talking about here. There may be certain blind spots you have in your connection, right? This is why clients reach out to me to schedule a 1-hour coaching call, because they want to know exactly where their blind spot is. They want to know exactly how they contributed negatively to the connection, and more importantly, what they can do next, what behavior or mindset or belief they can integrate in order to never experience this traumatic situation again. So if that's you, if you're someone like that who wants to finally take control of your romantic life, you want to finally date the woman you want to date or maintain the relationship that you have, I have a link in the description for a 1-hour coaching call. If you want clarity, if you want a step-by-step action plan, click that link, schedule a call with me, and I look forward to speaking with you.